Stalking in the second degree, which is Connecticut General Statute 53A-181, Section D.
So this law covers when someone repeatedly follows, monitors, or contacts you as a survivor of domestic violence. A statute simply means the law, which essentially are your rights. And whenever you're a survivor, it's very important for you to know what rights play a role in your particular situation.
We're going to empower you to get justice and to help yourself.
Now, this is not going to be a legal, complicated podcast. Statutes are for everyday people like you and I. You don't need any legal background in order to be able to know what a statute is.
Hello, everyone. Good evening. I am Libby Protzman, your Miss Executive Connecticut and the host of SOS, Survivors of Stalking, Survivors of Stalking is a global awareness campaign designed to empower, educate, and amplify the voices of survivors of trauma, abuse, cyber stalking, bullying, harassment, and any other traumatic situation that comes with the advent of the internet. Our incredible guest, who I am so glad I connected with. We connected a couple months ago, maybe even more than that, on social media, and we stayed in touch with each other, and I've been following his career, especially on LinkedIn, is Raphael, the president and founder of Statute Finder AI. He is making waves in the tech world with this proprietary software that is phenomenal. He'll go more into it. I want everyone to listen carefully, because not only are we going to talk about real solutions using technology, but we're going to empower you after listening to this episode to log in, find Statute Finder, and use it to get justice and to help yourself. Thank you so much. All right, Raphael, please tell me a little bit about yourself.
Hey, thanks, Libby. The introduction was fantastic. A little bit about myself. As you can see, we're in the Argentina jersey because I was born in Argentina and I'm a naturalized U.S. citizen. I love this country very much. And what else would you like to know about me?
So I know that you are, you have started this as a nonprofit. So this is not, you're not a tech bro looking to get funding from a hedge fund here. You are truly helping communities, and you're helping people en masse. I mean, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of people are benefiting from this, and more so even after tonight.
That's right, Libby. So what we're discussing is statutefinder.org. For anyone that may not be familiar, because I wasn't as a survivor of domestic violence, a statute simply means the law, which essentially are your rights. And whenever you're a survivor, shout out to all the survivors and the advocates listening, it's very important for you to know what rights play a role in your particular situation. Because if you can simply identify those little codes, which are called statutes, I want to introduce everyone to that word today. If you know those codes that are jurisdiction specific to the geographic area where you live, then you can best advocate for yourself and improve your situation. Now, this is not going to be a legal, complicated podcast. Statutes are for everyday people like you and I. You don't need any legal background in order to be able to know what a statute is. So I wanted to introduce to everyone statutefinder.org. As you can see from the link in the bio, is essentially an AI app that's free, anonymous, no login required, and you can simply input your situation of abuse in the most colloquial terms, like you're talking to a friend. You input it in the chat, and it spits back out to you the relevant statute codes that may correspond to your situation. There's a plethora of things you can do with those statute codes to improve your situation. For example, you can avoid homelessness potentially, because there are rights that protect you from tenant rights, all kinds of rights. Even if you're married and somebody decides to stop paying the mortgage, if you can prove in some jurisdictions that you're a survivor of domestic violence, guess what? You may avoid homelessness. That's a huge deal. There are more situations, but go ahead, Libby.
Awesome. So a couple of questions that I have. How comfortable do you feel in this field, having been a survivor? Do you feel vicarious trauma as you help others who are going through this that you overcame?
Comfort, I I live my life outside the comfort box, so everything is uncomfortable, but I need to make things happen to help others. So I'm willing to take on that. And it's yes, it's not easy. In the first, I cried a lot in the beginning. I still cry almost every day.
Healthy.
But
You have to. You have to,
yeah,
especially
but
in your line of work.
yeah, just the lives that we touch, the people when they find our free AI software, there's this misconception. Well, I like the healthy skepticism, and it's grounded on truth. We see that AI sometimes is not doing the best work for people, but there also is good AI like Statute Finder that victims and survivors can use to actually improve and combat their abusers. So going back to your question, in the beginning it was a lot of an emotional feeling, but as time goes on, one becomes desensitized. The mind becomes a bit more accustomed to the stories that some of the survivors personally reach out to me with, because the software is anonymous, so we never know who's using it. No one's being tracked. There's no login. And the only reason why I know someone has had an exceptional experience with Statute Finder is if they reach out to our social media account and they actually introduce themselves and they tell me personally that they had a good experience. And sometimes I can get them on a podcast a little bit like this and they'll share with us. We have dozens of video testimonials. So it feels great. Thank you.
I am so incredibly happy to hear that. I love your story. How can we, before we get into more about the actual software in the app, how can we support you? What are things that we can do to support you, Statute Finder, in its journey through the tech world?
Thanks for asking. It is very simple. Knowing what the word statute means. Just remember that from this podcast. If you know what the word statute means, you already won, essentially, from this podcast. Then step 2 is, where do you find those relevant statutes? And you go to statutefinder.org. If you know those two things, you basically took away what I wanted to convey to you in this entire podcast. What a statute is, the definition, which are your laws, your rights, and where to find them. Statutefinder.org.
I love that. Perfect. Awesome. And also, I would definitely suggest sharing on social media. Please, if you are an advocate in this field, if you are a survivor, if you are supporting a family member, a loved one, your community, please share this with your network. Give them a like, give them a follow, tag them. Let's support them, because what they're doing is next level. It's on the forefront, in the front lines of how tech and software are going to help survivors of trauma, and especially domestic violence, because as you know, that can be an incredibly lonely, incredibly isolating experience. So please tell me more about the software, and if possible, we could run a demo. And please feel free to share your screen if you'd like. And
Yeah, certainly. So let's dive in.
let's dive right in.
All right. So we go to statutefinder.org. It has 3 T's. So a little bit of a tricky word to spell. Statutefinder.org. You can see us being featured on the news and several agencies already using our free software. There's no login, no permission required. You don't have to meet me or know anything about me. You can just go to a website, kind of like you go to Facebook or you go to Instagram, and you just start using it without anyone's permission or anything signed. It's proficient in all these things. We're going to dive into how to use it in a moment. So for everyone dealing with orders of protection, criminal law, family law, divorce law, child custody cases, child abuse law, tenant rights, child protective services law, parental alienation and custody interference, immigration law, cyber stalking, housing evictions, and more. So it covers all the areas that overlap with domestic violence. All right, so here you see at the very top of the page a little window that you can just talk to it. And like it says, you just follow the prompts. There's really no manual necessary. I'm just going to show you a demo. So describe the incident of abuse. Given that this is the SOS Survivors of Stalking, let's go over a little stalking situation, which I went through that myself with the women that I was seeing back then. So what's like a typical stalking situation? Libby, I'll just type it for you. Just talk.
So you meet someone in a dating app. You might click with them, you match with them, and you start to talk to them. You may even give them your phone number or other identifying information, and then all of a sudden they're stalking, harassing, You're getting prank calls, text messages, your personal information is being shared, you're being doxxed. Your partner, your former partners, your exes are now being stalked by this person, and so on and so forth.
Okay. Being doxxed. How do you spell that?
DOXXED.
What does that mean?
Doxing is it's a predatory cyber behavior where a person takes your personal information, very personal. Like we're talking, personal details that go beyond just basic identifiers, and sends them on the internet. Typically, they're made available on the dark web, oftentimes social media, but this could be anything from your health information, your home address, your phone number, emails, information about your intimate relationships, information about your children, things like that.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. I learned a new word. As you can see from Statute Finder, the statutes, the laws are jurisdiction specific, which means based on your geography. So one of the first things it's going to ask you is what country and state did this occur in? So let's go with Libby. What's a good state that you want to base this on?
So I know that Connecticut has extremely particular laws on cyber stalking and particularly domestic violence.
Beautiful. So I put Connecticut. This is also, Statute Finder works globally, all countries, all languages. All right. So let me know if you can see this, Libby.
Yes, I can see that. That is incredible. And
All right.
it's so humanistic. It's saying, thank you. I appreciate you opening up. I'm here to support you. This is incredible.
It's got empathy, but I also don't want to overwhelm the user with too much empathy because we want to get to the core of the subject here. So the first sentence is usually something acknowledging what they inputted. And then it follows up. Some people give up at this stage, which is what I wanted to share with others, like get through this because it wants to know a little bit more, because sometimes survivors, they don't think that things that matter actually do. They may think that something is inconsequential, but one piece of evidence can really play in your favor. So that's why it's going to ask it just a little bit more. So let's dive into it. This says, can you tell me more about what this happened? Did this person threaten you directly? So let's go ahead and answer that question, Libby. Did they threaten you directly?
Yes, the person threatened me in multitudes, different ways, physical harm, harm to my home, harm to my family, harm to my career, harm to my, relationships and my friendships, harm to my reputation. I mean, it wasn't just physical threats. It was, so much more. Some of the things that were said online about me would give you chills. Just horrifying, and that's one of the difficulties too, is that sometimes statutes aren't necessarily universal, and they're not even necessarily particular. Different precincts and different police departments might interpret things differently too. Judicial districts can have varying degrees of enforcement. And so I think that this is incredible and so crucial because it can help people overcome that and barrier and those impediments.
So now let's dive into the details. Details matter. Did they ever send you messages or make calls where they describe exactly what they would do to you, your home, and your career? Like, what did they say? Let's make up a makeup scenario here.
So in particular, one situation where I was interviewing a survivor is the person was always showing up where she was. She wasn't in contact with him anymore. She had told him to leave her alone, broke off the relationship, but somehow he was always there. He knew somehow where she was.
Okay,
And
so I'm gonna say I suspect he has a GPS installed in my car.
yes, yep.
Without my consent. Have they posted your address, phone number, other private information online? Let's go with yes for that.
Yes.
So it's like talking to a human. You got to give it context because these specifics do matter. It's asking you for a reason. It has some laws, statutes that it wants to match you with, but before it does, let's make sure. So that's why it's asking. It's not trying to be annoying. So have they posted your address? Yes. All right, so question number 3. Are there any specific examples of what they said about you online that damage your reputation? Let's go with one. What's something that comes to mind, Libby?
the things that were said about me were that I had lied about being sexually assaulted, that I was doing this on purpose to ruin people, that I was promiscuous, that I was an alcoholic and a drug addict, that I abuse and neglect my children, including false reports that were made to varying different state departments to try to incite an investigation about me.
About me. And have your ex-partners or friends received threats or harassing messages directly from this person?
Yes. Reached out immediately. As soon as I tried to cut off contact with the person, they immediately flew into a rage. They contacted people that I dated. They contacted my ex-husband. They contacted my employers, friends of mine. The list goes on.
Perfect. All right. So now I think we've done 3 or 4 messages, and now we get to the statutes. We were perseverant. We gave it specifics, and here we go. So thank you for providing these details. Based on what you've described, threats of physical harm, doxing, which is posting your private information online. So it understood what you meant. Stalking, the one that didn't know was me. The state finder knew. Stalking, showing up where you are, possibly tracking you. Defamation, the false statements online, damaging your reputation, and harassment of your ex-partners and friends. Multiple Connecticut laws may apply. So here's how your experience relates to specific statutes. So what's the first one that it says here, Libby?
Stalking in the second degree, which is Connecticut General Statute 53A-181, Section D.
All right. So this law covers when someone repeatedly follows, monitors, or contacts you in a way that causes you to fear for your safety. Installing a GPS tracker without your consent and showing up where you are can fall under the statute. And what's the evidence that we may need for that, Libby?
We're going to get screenshots. We're going to get of messages specifically, call logs. We're going to get photos of the person at my location, evidence of the GPS tracking. For example, a mechanic's report or a device actually found, and then witness statements.
Perfect. Beautiful. I like your narrative, how you explain this, everything. And there's actually a reporting window for statutes, right? They can expire, but you have 5 years from the last incident. Side note, based on my story, when I reported my abuse to police, they told me that I should forgive and forget about it because a couple of weeks had gone by. And I was actually subject to stalking, like this statute in Arizona. But I showed the officers, excuse me, officer, the stalking statute has 5 years in this jurisdiction. And the officer could not believe that I knew my rights. Okay? So what happened? She was sent to the prosecutor for felony domestic violence charges. So you can override that opinion of the officer because that is an opinion, not a fact. And when we give the listeners the facts, I want you to have, all the listeners, the success that I had. All right, so we got more statutes here. What is this one, Libby?
This is harassment in the second degree, which is threats or unwanted contact by phone, text, or electronic means that alarms and or annoys you.
And is there maybe a little code number associated with that?
This is Connecticut General Statute 53A, but it's subsection 183, not 181.
Right? I think I don't consider myself very smart, but when we start citing things like this, we sound I think I sound very smart when I start citing things.
You're incredibly smart.
I want people to feel that way whenever they're talking to an officer, when they're reporting a crime, so they can best advocate for themselves. If one starts using terminology like they were gaslighting me, this is narcissistic abuse, speaking from personal experience, you may lose a lot of credibility in the eyes of the people that matter the most, like detectives, judges, and police officers. However, if you use the terms that Libby is using right here, then you'll get their attention and you may get a proper investigation. So as we said before, there's evidence needed. There's a reporting window. This reporting window is actually a year. The other one was 5 years, so it changes. And there's more, like criminal threatening, the statute 53A, section 62. And what is this one called, Libby?
So this is actually really important because this is a rather new phenomenon, and especially with the advent of AI creating images, but this is dissemination of intimate images without consent. Connecticut General Statute 53A, but subsection 189C. If any
Exactly.
private images were shared online without your consent, this law applies.
Exactly. So there's a little hyperlink here. Sometimes it doesn't work, but if it doesn't work, it's totally okay because you can just grab and paste this in Google, which is the information they came here for. And my internet connection is a little bit slow.
That's okay.
There it goes. So the audience can see what I did. I copied and pasted that in Google, and it'll take you to the law itself. So it's loading because we're having a video call, so it's a little bit slower. Here it goes. Now, when you land on the page, if the statute, because statutes evolve, the law is always changing. That's why you see people in the media advocating for more legal rights for survivors. If you want to get the newest version, it's simply in the top right corner right here. View our very latest version here. And this one's from 2022. So let's see what the latest one is. If it finished loading. Well, while it finishes, let's see, we can do, there it goes. This one's from 2024. So this is the latest one here. All right. Well, now I show survivors how to input their situation, how to get the legal codes, how to get the latest legal codes. And there's a couple more. So the situation that Libby went over, it was a lot going on. But if you want to, we can review all of them, but maybe people have gotten the idea of how this works.
I am so appreciative. I do want to point out that, you know, what you said about having the right terminology is so crucial because I went through extremely similar situation with you. I reported everything over and over and over again. I had screenshots, call logs, emails, text messages. I had documents. The person was sending weird things to me in the mail. They were leaving suspicious packages at my house. They were sending people here. And the police would say, this is just a dispute between two people, or just forget about it. Don't let it bother you anymore. Just move on with your life. And the abuse continued to get worse. The silence and the lack of action was actually emboldening the person.
I can totally relate to that, Libby. Did you ultimately end up getting a fair investigation or no?
I did. I documented everything. And eventually ended up reporting it to the FBI. And I got a call actually from the U.S. state marshals. And so the U.S. Marshal intervened, the state police intervened, and there's a warrant out for the person's arrest, not only for what they did to me, but what they did to other people as well.
This is a pattern that I see, and also from here, Libby's situation, that survivors and advocates, please don't be discouraged if your first contact with police is not what you had expected and hoped for. Oftentimes, as you hear from Libby and from my story, the first officer assigned to the case, they're sometimes no good. You got to work your way up. You got to ask for the person in charge, for the detective in charge. And once you start citing those statute codes and you provide the supplemental evidence, this is what happens behind the scenes. You're basically showing them that you know your rights. And if they don't honor the letter of the law, which officers take an oath when they work, then their career could be put in jeopardy. So once you have that leverage that unless you honor my rights, then your career could be put in jeopardy, then you start getting that leverage you need to get the justice that you deserve.
Absolutely. And I think another thing too is establishing a pattern, because sometimes what I've learned in working with the police is that, there could be evidence of a crime, but in order to get a warrant and to make an arrest, they need to have probable cause. And a prosecutor and a judge must sign the warrant as well. So they need to have a solid case to be able to convict this person with, or at least beyond a reasonable doubt. And so there needs to be a pattern of behavior. And that is actually, I'm glad you're bringing this up, because police will they can and will ignore you, or at least, dissuade you, They might even turn the situation around on you. That's something I heard from a police officer. This is your fault for befriending someone that you on the internet.
Absolutely. But my mindset is always, it's one has to learn to play the game, essentially. And these are the way that the way laws work in the system. So we're teaching you in this podcast. Hopefully you get a chance to watch a little video if you happen to only listen to audio, to actually try Statute Finder, because learn to play the game, learn to advocate for yourself, use the statutes and collect the evidence, and insist. If one officer doesn't help you, what I did is I put all the statutes in writing and the supporting evidence and screenshots underneath in a document, and I send it to the police station. And that's what got the case escalated up the chain.
Absolutely. I also think another thing too is working with another advocate. I know in Connecticut, and I do believe also in Arizona, where you are, there is an Office of Victim Services or a victim advocate or some sort of, service department within the judicial agency that stands up for crime victims. And working with an individual from there, having them come with you to the police can be really, really helpful, because like you said, there's that accountability. A state agency knows about what's happening to you, and you also have a second voice sticking up for you and talking about your experience.
Exactly, Libby. And I'm so grateful that you bring up the advocates. Some of the concerns that I heard back is, could this be considered legal advice? So here's a disclaimer. You can say, this is not legal advice. I cannot give you legal advice. If any of these statutes apply to the situation, you can list them for your own records, but I cannot tell you which statutes apply or what to do. That's the disclaimer that you can say over the phone if you happen to be using Statute Finder as a tool to help a survivor. So this is an advocate tool also.
That I love, because it empowers people to help others too. I've heard this so many times. I have had probably thousands of people now that I've been doing this for the past year reach out to me. It's usually about 10, 15, sometimes 100 a day, depending on the circumstances. And they all ask for help. And it can be really hard in directing them to the right place. But I feel like Statute Finder is an incredible starting point, like one starting point for all of us to come together, empower ourselves with the right tool, the right information to move forward. And maybe this is a good way for people to connect with a service organization. Maybe they never even believed that their experience was stalking, or their experience was domestic violence, or it, was workplace harassment or something of that nature. But now they know it could be this, and they can seek legal assistance through those channels.
Precisely, Libby. Well, I'm so grateful. Thank you for having me in the show. If there's anything else that you want to cover, but I think we were able to deliver the message to the audience today.
This was incredible. I just really hope that listeners or people seeing this, watching this, seeing this on social media posted somewhere will click this link, statutefinder.org. Please, this is an invaluable tool. And also, if you feel comfortable, reach out to Raphael. He has a wonderful presence on social media, especially LinkedIn. He is well respected in this community. And like I said, he is making a name for himself and his organization in the tech world. And he does this all to help people. It is a nonprofit organization, a 501c3. You can donate to support their cause, or reach out to him to collaborate with your organization as well.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for having me, Libby. I really appreciate it.
Of course. God bless you. I hope your team does so well. I'll be watching, and I hope you have a wonderful week.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much, Raphael.